Hi, Lynn. Lynn really wants to talk to us. You can literally see her bouncing up and down. Go on, Lynn. Blow us the fuck away.
Tell us about the lore. Uh-oh. That's... Gotta say, it's a little disappointing there, Lynn. Was expecting a little deeper analysis, shall we say.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, we made a pictogram of the meteor arriving. It's a pictogram of the meteor arriving, but what do you think it means? Which is, you know, the much more interesting observation.
Oh no, I've seen this one. Shit. Hang on, we don't want to go down there. There's a giant energy-sucking monster.
And they specifically said it was sealed down here.
Hey, do we have, like, a spare set of armor that we can let it absorb instead of us when we get there?
I don't think Crossworlds has that integrated in an acceptable enough level of detail for that gambit to work. In a break with tradition, this is not a branching path. There is actually only one way around. We have to do this handful of rooms in order, and I regret to inform you that it is time for the Ricochet puzzle. And you're probably wondering, how are they possibly gonna escalate this? We're gonna see. But sorry, you were saying?
Oh, I was gonna say that, I mean, of course, now we're at the Ricochet puzzle, which is, of course, going to be some absurd horse shit. But, like, broadly, I think it is interesting, question mark? The degree to which, for as much as this is supposed to be some kind of big final dungeon in which they test everything, this is, like, very obviously Radical Fish pulling their punches.
I mean, it's remarkably restrained in terms of the staggering depth of possibilities offered by this new puzzle element that can combine with literally any other puzzle element and can stack them all.
And
like,
yet,
there must have been so many things they could have done.
And yet they do really none of them. Like, a lot of these are fairly basic applications of, oh hey, you can put the bubble on the blob.
It's kind of a pickle, honestly. Like, they've got this thing and they've made it absurd, but they also need this to, like, humans have to be able to solve this. I would dearly love to see the contents of the Radical Fish cutting room floor for this dungeon, because there must be some shit in there. There are probably going to be some insane mods that are made with this stuff. I don't know how prevalent puzzle mods in CrossCode actually are. I feel like there should be a lot of them. You could probably make one hell of a ROM hack out of this material.
Oh yeah, no, and not the good kind of ROM hack. It would be an absolutely absurd disaster, but you absolutely could.
Did everybody appreciate the name of this room? Just in case anybody overlooked it, I'm going to repeat it. This room is called Load Barring Pillars. And I love it. Anyway, this is a gigantic clusterfuck of, like, I think there's, what, 28? So 27? One of them. Maybe it's an even 30, I never counted. Lots of pillars. Big pile of pillars. All the elements. And you can take this room seriously and engage it on its terms, and you can be like, right, I'm gonna go to effort and not get a card combo, or you can be me and realise that I have never really shown off Blade Sphere. But what if I did? Because these things are packed so tightly together that it doesn't really matter what you do. Blade Sphere only lasts a couple seconds, but in that couple seconds you can get enough melee hits to build up your SP to get another Blade Sphere. Like, our meter's maxed out, and it only ever comes off max when we do a Blade Sphere. Oh, and I guess there's our answer to the three-way combo.
Yeah, so that is a no. You cannot have a three-way combo. Once again, like I said, Radical Fish pulling their punches at this...
Cowards.
At the very end of the game, in their super dungeon, now is when they put the kid gloves back on?
Cowardice.
I'm disappointed, frankly.
They had to pull a punch somewhere. It's like, I think this whole thing has been an exercise in finding out what actually is a point where limits are appropriate. There's been all this stuff that we've seen. It has worked because they've taken these concepts and they just ran with it. But there always comes a point where restraint is more appropriate. Like, there is such a thing as too much game design. That's when you start reaching the point where, like, this stuff only makes sense in absurd difficulty mods. There's a reason that those things always show up in ROM hacks. It takes some doing to get maximum difficulty working commercially. And I mean, yeah, sure, they've restrained themselves a bit in the design of all this, but at the same time they haven't. Like, for as much as they don't overwhelm you with possibility, these puzzles here, they go hard. They don't hold back what they are offering. They do say, look, we're not going to mix together too many things at once, but they make sure you understand the gimmicks, they make sure you understand the subtleties. There actually is a subtlety, by the way, that I only came to appreciate in retrospect, that originally when I was doing the original runs of these, that I thought was just like an inconsistency or a glitch or something. And it's that Thunderballs, the ordinary Thunder charged ball, when it's in motion and it's going around a set of walls, will pass through orange barriers, but the Thunderball with the blob in it will not pass through orange barriers. And that's a fun one. That turns out to almost be important for like 2 rooms in this dungeon. The last, not this room, but the one immediately before, and one other room. And you possibly could make a hell of a puzzle that was pretty much designed entirely around that principle. And it would be quite something. But ultimately they didn't, and I think that was kind of the right call, honestly.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree that going to the extent that they could have with all of these different tools would have been far and above beyond what any realistic player could have. Well, I say what what anyone who is
we know what you mean.
Yeah. Like, it would take it would basically appeal to only the hardest of the hardcore. And, like, so, like, as far as a commercial thing goes, that is absolutely the right call to make.
Now, I personally would play an insane puzzle design CrossCode mod. However, I would not evangelize it the way that I evangelize the rest of this. Get some, Leah.
I was gonna say, I cannot believe you are about to turn Luke down on this date.
Also, let's be honest, Leah absolutely would prefer walking through a war zone. Alright. Bottom floor. I didn't have time to show off the map, but this room is actually, like, technically it's 5 floors long. But that's a technicality. Anyway, so far in this LP I have endeavoured to show you something resembling competence in fights, but I never really took it too far. In this room, on the other hand, I spent something like an entire month on and off running through this room, and I have produced the following take. So for the next 4.5 minutes, we're going to play CrossCode like it's Devil May Cry. We are going to bear witness to serious Ferromancer style. I really tried not just to, to do this well and to not take damage and all that, but also to do combos that look good, and also to never, ever look at an explosion. Also, I did that first floor, like, so well that it kind of glitched the frame rate a little bit. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I'm not doing it again.
I was gonna say, you seem to have accidentally done the cool thing on that last one.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is one of the times that I was most inclined to fail, is just dealing with these Humpagnums. Anyway, this is the only hit that I took. I'm annoyed that I had to take a hit because Gongne has no iframes, but it was absolutely necessary to set this up. I do not have any dubstep in my soundboard, but if I did, I would be blasting it right now, because that was an Ether Snipe no scope, and I'm very pleased with it. Here's a BR bot. This guy's a fucker. He really likes to get cheap hits on you, but also, here's a good way of breaking him. Mines! Mines are really good, and the mid-level mine tech produces mines that move, so if you time it right, you can just lay a big trail of mines, he will jump over them, they will all hit him in the back, and he'll be instantly broken. I believe I've also talked about jumping over shields. That's a thing that you can do. Telling you, 3D action. It matters.
It is a little disappointing that you didn't get the kill with the tech on that one, though. Gonna have to deduct a letter grade for that.
But you're gonna have to add one back on, because I just stood there while he burned out. I mean, for all that you say I didn't kill him with the tech, that tech was the last thing that I hit him with before he died.
I mean, arguably, that's actually even worse, because that means that had you done, even a single more hit before you did the tech, it would have killed him.
Ah, technicalities. This is really fucking difficult to time, by the way. I don't think I've actually shown flickering stars yet, but that was it. But if I had done that, a tiny bit earlier or a tiny bit later, one way or another the shield would have hit me on the rebound. But I figured out how to hit him so that you avoid the shield. Anyway, for our final trick, you have to fight 2 neutral guardians at the same time. They don't have any of the fancy elemental stuff, it's just that there's 2 of them and they keep throwing that shield. Jump! So this was also kind of a time to do. Also, it's not that I've never shown Final Showdown before, it's just that I never really leaned on it in a fight, so this was a fun one. But yeah, First Cut and Final Showdown have a ton of iframes on them, so you can do this. It's extremely satisfying. And there you go. I am pretty proud of that result. I am less proud of how long it took me to get it, but I'm not one of those combo video channel guys, so I just had to tough this out with my real human gaming abilities. But hey, for 4.5 minutes, I made it work.
I see that Emily has finally had the realization of, oh wait, there's no more content after this.
Yeah, this is it, and Leah has to live here now. Anyway, you actually will only see that conversation if you take the time to call Emily yourself. And that's a neat detail. Alright. Final boss of Crossworlds. What is possibly left for the gods of the ancients to throw at us? Also, I believe I've previously spoken about soundtrack nods. So, viewers, I give you Hamawazu. Also, Diorbis and friends. I give you him as well. We're doing this. Time to kill God. But canon this time. Now, I said I give you Diorbis, and technically that's the guy whose name goes on the sheet here, but we're actually going to be spending most of our time fighting, you know, the 4 lesser ones. You can probably imagine how the different traits are distributed among them. We get a random pair every time we have to engage with this. They work about as you'd expect. We took down Enel just now by using counters and ice and a big satisfying eternal winter. Now we're fighting Quinn and Goni. For as different as they all are, and they are all different, they all have a lot of different things they can do, the basic thesis here is always the same. You wait for them to finish one of their attacks, you get them in a vulnerable phase, you hit them with something that hits a lot of times to break them, and then you bust out your most effective 6 SP tech that you have in the correct element. When you break 2 of them, you get the opportunity to get some hits on the big guy. He also is only vulnerable for an extremely brief period, so make those hits count.
Now, here's a question. Do these gods fight like the classes they're named after?
I mean, yeah. This is Diaro. He's, like, large and slow. He has a lot of defense, as you can probably imagine, but not enough to tank an entire Vermilion Echo. And he's got a lot of very high-impact hammer attacks that come out quite slowly. It is possible to use a fire guard art on him, and it's very satisfying to land, but the problem with it is that the hammer hits you from above, you know, because it's a hammer. So you have to guard the shockwave, rather than the actual hammer itself. And that's kind of tricky to do in the heat of the moment. Now, a thing that I've previously wondered about, CrossWorld's CrossCode lore in general is how much attention the actual designers of CrossWorld paid to what Gotham was up to, like when all that came out. Like, did any of them actually consider any of his more radical designs?
I believe we have an answer to that.
Yeah. So one thing they definitely did copy from the Ultimate experience is that thing where he charges up a super attack and you have to solve a puzzle in order to mitigate it. So that's nice. Anyway, second phase. We're still fighting 2 at a time, but now they start breaking out their slightly more effective attacks. As you can imagine, Eno has a lot of triangle stuff going on as a general motif for some reason.
Yeah, a lot of...
Wonder what's up with that.
I'll say the Tri-Blader arts are pretty obvious on that one.
Yeah. Now there are a good couple of mitigating tricks you can do to each of them, and sometimes you can tailor this pretty well to what they're throwing at you, but as ever, Guard Sphere remains a pretty stalwart universal plan if you can't quite figure out what's going on. You can't really go wrong with Guard Sphere. Also, this arena has no walls, so you can't actually do any Ether Snipe Ricochet. And the technicalities of our current build make it such that I just barely sometimes cannot take out Quinn with a single Ether Snipe. So that's very annoying. There isn't really a wrong answer about who to go after. It's pretty much just take the opportunities as they come. Don't sweat too much the details of like, oh no, I'm not doing this optimally, unless you're doing a speedrun or something, but what are you gonna do? Mostly, you just focus on surviving the fight and making sure that you're countering whatever's right in front of your face. If you can do that, you're probably gonna make this work. As you can imagine, Goni has a lot of ranged arts, and those ranged arts really like to mess up your guard. Like, we got guard broken like halfway through the initial flurry there. Here's his big ultimate attack. Spawn 6 turrets, and then you get shot by 1, then 2, then 3 of them at a time. It's technically very easy to dodge, but somehow I can never quite manage to do it, so I always end up just tanking it with Guard Sphere. The nature of this is such that you pretty much end up getting your choice of who you actually want to go after, and most people will wind up developing favourites for who they go after. I've tried to at least go for a nominal amount of variety in which gods we take down in what order, but left to my own devices, I will usually end up going after Diaro and Enel. They just seem the easiest to get for me. Diaro because he's just so slow and predictable, and goes down really easily to fire attacks. Enel takes a bit more work, but her attacks are they feel a lot more possible to get guards against, especially when she starts going for the sword combos. You can land freeze frame and such on her, and that's both incredibly satisfying and sets her up to be broken. And she stays broken for exactly long enough for you to get one good Eternal Winter on her. You've got to be quick, but it is possible. Third phase, now we're fighting all 4 of them. They're going to attack us in sequence. There's a lot of stuff coming at you. You've got to stay on top of it. Do note, by the way, how effective are level 1 elemental techs like Ice Twirl and Flame Jab and such. are at getting breaks. There was me landing a recoil trumpet, but not really accomplishing very much with it. Really, there's a lot of great ways to counter DRO. Getting into Hammer and Mine is pretty satisfying, I gotta admit.
Ah, now do we have to break all of them in order to get the big boy to come back out?
No, it still only takes 2. You do get to choose 2, it's just that you have to, like, deal with all of them while that's happening. Also, I should stress that Deorbus does not recover his break meter between these sub-phases, so you don't, like, it's not a huge problem if you either don't manage to break him or don't make a huge amount of progress. You just have to stick at it. This is the final boss. It's not going to go down instantly. They are gonna make you work for it. Really, the thing here is, this is very much about endurance, and not just like, you know, the tanking all the hits and not running out of hit points. This is about managing to keep up your CrossCode combat brain for the requisite period of time, under increasingly dire circumstances, in order to make this work. In other words, this is a final boss fight. Like, they throw everything at you. It's like, this is obviously the hardest single encounter in the game. You know, except the optional super boss, but you know, it's what you'd expect. Literally every single thing gets thrown at you. All the elements, all the kinds of text, all the kinds of threats, all the kinds of called for tactics. Pretty much everything that you've ever leaned on while playing this game has some kind of an application here. There are sensible, pragmatic choices, and there's bold, interesting choices. There's just so many ways to go about this. The important part is that it just never, ever stops. That's what I mean by endurance. You just have to not get exhausted. I mean, you, personally, need to not get tired while doing this. And while you're not getting tired, you have to maintain an awareness of each of these guys' gimmicks, what kind of stuff they throw at you, what stuff is required. They tend to be pretty appropriate, like, you know, Diaro's stuff is slow and hits in a big area, you basically just have to move out of the way. Inao's fast and technical, you want to counter her. Quinn is a pain, likes to dart around and be unpredictable. Mostly, you want to tank that stuff. And Goni will fire a bunch of projectiles that will break your guard. You want to be dodging it. None of these things, taken on their own, are that difficult to do. It's just that you've got to keep switching between what you're doing. Constantly. Under more and more demanding conditions every time. Because I feel like I'm repeating myself now, it never, ever lets up. I don't know about anyone else, I'm kind of getting exhausted just watching this back.
I gotta say...
And I did it.
I gotta say that I am a little... I mean, I guess it's just part of the endurance thing, but I feel like this would have been better served as a strict phases thing, rather than the, oh, boss has X HP.
I'm not sure what you mean by strict phases.
As in, like, you have to, you know, break the gods one, in other words, a set number of times that you go through the whole cycle of breaking the gods. Rather than, you know, oh, the boss has, like, in this case, for example, we missed the phase, we missed the end of phase 3 by, like, a tiny sliver, and thus we had to go through the entire 4 set again.
I do see what you mean, and I don't think you have no point, but I also do think that this stuff needs to be, to an extent, it needs to be masterable, and it needs to be fuck-upable. Like, there needs to be something at which a great player can be better than an okay player at. By the way, this starts getting real dicey. You probably noticed that expanding sphere in the middle. Also, a surprise super attack. This is a category 1 fucker. The number of times this killed me just because I forgot that it was coming. It's not that difficult. You just don't stand in the danger zone. But good God. He had to have one, of course. Alright, final phase. Once again, all 4 gods, except now they just use all their super moves all the time. I have taken the extraordinary intervention of like actually eating some food. I drank some night pepper tea and I ate a fruit pie for defense. And good God, I don't regret doing either of those things. Like, I gotta admit, I could not do this without leaning on guards there. There's so much, and it never stops. I can get the counters, but you gotta manage this whole thing. You gotta not only not die, you have to fight back, you gotta land the counters, you gotta find when they're vulnerable, and then when they are, you have to have enough SP on hand to actually hit them with stuff. And then when you do that, you still gotta, lest you forget, actually land some hits on the big guy. It might be worth eating attack up stuff rather than defense up stuff, just if you find that you can't quite deal enough damage fast enough. It sometimes turns out to be the case that having to do this less is just less hazardous to your health. Funny how that works. I feel like there's a well-worn proverb about offense and defense, but I can't quite bring it home. There you saw me get caught without enough SP again, and Diaro got to live because of that. This is what a minute failure to manage looks like in this fight. Like, you saw we almost died. We were at critical health. I am, like, just chugging healing items, and keeping the guard up, and landing the techs, and dodging the stuff, and doing the damage. Like, god damn. They really went all out on this. This is a worthy final boss. At the end of the day, I respect this enormously. Goodbye, Diorbis. You fought honorably.
So what is the lore implication of having just killed God?
We didn't kill him. We just sparred with him a little bit. On the metaphysical level, it may not have even strictly speaking happened according to the lore. Like, we just kind of faded to white, and then did a fight, and faded back in, and now we're at whatever the hell this is.
Can't believe Crossworld is just directly advocating for you to make an alt character.
Time to prestige. And sure, why not? What's one more CP?
A matter of time, such as exactly as long as it will take us to introduce our the sequel to Crossworlds.
Now, when we were going down the list of possible appropriate ways in which Crossworlds could end, I think we could all agree that there was only ever one way this could end. I'm not even mad.